Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. The last show of this week, and it's here on this Friday, and it's great to have the former Wolverine. You see him on the screen, Jerry Diorio. There he is. Jerry, how are you?
Denny, I'm doing great. How about yourself? It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine, baby.
I'm doing great. You know, it's fun. I love doing this podcast. I love having you on Friday to talk about Michigan and what's going on with the Wolverines and in college football. And that's what we're doing today. So we're loaded. We might as well jump in and show everybody and then tell everyone what we have planned here. You know, there's over on the Maize and Blue Review, there was a post about who you think the underrated player is, your underrated player. And Jerry and I both will tell you who we think are our underrated players for Michigan heading into the 25 season. And then it's never too early. They do it right after the season ends, but post-spring, you start looking at who's going to be in the top 25. I took a shot at who I would, if I was voting, and I will tell you why I'm voting, where I'm voting. I put a top 5, and I'll expand this as the season goes on. We'll see if Michigan makes the top 5 in the preseason, top 25 on mine. But we're going to start looking across the state. You know, there's a lot of players. Michigan, this time last year, Bryce Underwood, you had LSU, but then Michigan, Gatch, they did really well in the state. They got the top, I think, 4 guys. And teams and players in the state of Michigan to keep an eye on. That's how we're going to go about it here. And the first thing, Jerry, both you and I agreed as we took a look at it, and I have Rivals top 10 players in the state currently up on the screen. And there seems to be a consensus that the wide receiver from Detroit Cass Tech, CJ Sadler, he's the one. He's the one to keep an eye on. Michigan wants him. He's close to being a 5-star. He's in the state. I got to believe that they have him circled and underlined in the full court press or whatever else you want to say. Currently, he is undecided, but he would look good in the maize and blue. And if you're someone that's looking ahead to the start of the high school season, I think you got to look at Cass Tech and where they might play and where you might be able to watch a kid like Sadler play.
I was looking at the a video of these young men, some of these huddle videos. And I remember a coach once told me when they came in and recruited, this was back in the day, the player would have to jump out in like first 10 or 15 plays. That's all they needed to do. They needed to look at, if this player didn't jump off the screen at you, there was something there. Okay. And, but now all of a sudden you got all these kids making their own huddle highlight reels, and every play's a jump off the screen play now. And it's kind of funny, but that's how recruiting is done now. I mean, it's all a lot of huddle highlight films and that kind of thing, and then they take it from there, I guess. But Sadler, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm looking. When you asked me to take a look at this, Denny, I kind of looked at the divisions in the state and what teams to look at. I'm looking at in Division I on the east side, Cass Tech, and there's 2 reasons. Sadler, you got him listed right here, Denny. In my opinion, I don't believe he's a wide receiver. I think he's a slot receiver, somebody you want to get in space, somebody you want to stretch the field out east and west on run designs. Get him involved in jet sweeps, in zone reads, that kind of stuff. But this kid's got some real nice special speed. He's a good quality player, good hands, good ball skills, good speed, and he's going to be a player. He's going to be he's somebody who fits that slot demographic. Kind of reminds me of this S'Mores Morgan, Samaj Morgan, and some of those type of receivers, those smaller type slot receivers that get in space and they're just extremely dangerous. And Sadler has got a little bit more size than some of the slot receivers, which is, I think, good for him. But I think he's going to be in the slot if he doesn't play DB in college, and I think he's going to be a dangerous guy on the field. The other guy at Cass Tech that came out of the film, this Khalif Cantry, 6'5" or 6'4", 310, not committed, but Pitt and Louisville are looking at him. Big body, big kid, big offensive lineman. And it's funny. I'm looking at these offensive linemen, and more I watch these young offensive linemen. And now, don't take this wrong, but they play like bullies, and kind of my type of football. And I mean, when they come off the ball and they're dominating, you see some of these blocks. They're driving kids 10, 20 yards off the ball, into the sidelines, pancaking them, and that's what I saw with Cantry. I mean, this kid's he wants to be a dominant player. He wants to kind of be a bully on the football field, and he shows, and he throws people around pretty good. And Cass Tech, you got to look at them as being one of the favorites in the state in Division I.
Jerry, Jerry is a former offensive lineman at Michigan. From the time that you were playing and then coaching in high school, and you're back still coaching, the players are a lot bigger in high school. So we see that across the board, and especially with the linemen. But how much different is the coaching and the drills that these linemen are put through compared to, when you were, they had blocking sleds, they had all of that, but how much more are these guys involved in when it comes to the training as offensive linemen down through the years?
Well, now you're starting to look more and more at their feet because the passing game has become more and more prevalent in the game. You're looking at these big guys. How well can they move? And if they can't move all that well, does it take a long time to get around them anyways? So those are the kind of things you're looking at, the size and their feet. And, it's still the same thing that they were probably looking at when I was being recruited, what the size is compared to what we're going against, and what do the feet look like? Are the feet going to put them in position to be good? I mean, if you're giving up an inch or you're giving up 20 pounds, do your feet make up for it? Or if you're a little overweight, can your feet catch you up a little bit? So I think you're seeing more and more footwork type drills, pass blocking type drills for offensive linemen. I think these college coaches are looking for that because it's in such demand and such a tough art to perform.
Jerry, it doesn't sound like a crazy opinion. So I'm going to give the opinion. I'm telling you that I don't think this is a crazy opinion. Michigan has Bryce Underwood now as quarterback, and I don't think he's going to come out of the gate throwing it all around. I think he's going to throw anywhere from 20 to 25 times a game. Look at how many times J.J. McCarthy threw the ball in his sophomore season. He threw it 24 times a game. So I'm not expecting it's going to be closer to 20 than it is 30, especially right out of the gate. But when we're talking about recruiting as Bryce Underwood as a sophomore and a junior, I would expect the wide receiver recruiting to really take off. And a player like Sadler even knows Sharon Moore. He has said this a number of times that he is looking for bigger body, longer arm, wide receivers. That you're still not going to look away from a player as talented as Sadler. And as much as he might be in a slot, and you're talking about he's, height-wise like a Samaj Morgan, I think about in the pros, Tyreek Hill. You'd say, well, Tyreek Hill's an outlier, but Jamar Chase might be the best wide receiver in all of football, played at LSU and Cincinnati. And, he's not much bigger than 5'11". He might be listed at 6 feet tall, but he's a pretty, 6 foot tall wide receiver, best one in the NFL. I you say Jefferson, sure. All right, whatever you want to do, but not the biggest guy.
So, here's the thing, Denny, because I think you got a couple different positions going on here. Yeah, at wide receiver, I kind of like that big body, those long arms, those long limbs that can go up be physical and go get a ball that maybe would have been thrown out of bounds. But the slot receiver, like you bring up a good point with Tyreek Hill. I mean, that slot receiver position creates a tremendous amount of problems for the defense because now you got to cover a speedy guy possibly all the way across the field. And if you remember correctly with the Chiefs and what they did with him, they would run him across the field. It's hard to keep up with. And that's the kind of player I see Sadler. I'm not saying he's going to be a Tyreek Hill, but that's the kind of position I see Sadler can really exploit, that slot type receiver that can expand the field and get open in big spaces.
We're talking about some of the teams and players to look out for in 2025. Lincoln Keys is right outside of Ann Arbor, a stone's throw from the big house. He is already committed to Georgia. Keys, 6'6", 225. He's a 4-star. Interesting in this that now, Jerry, he's likely going to end up at Georgia, but flips happen, and they happen all the time.
Well.
It's not a huge surprise to see any of these guys, especially in-state guys, very close to their hometown schools here that could end up flipping. So, both Keys and then the player that's number 3, Marcelo Zaidi, a nickel out of Divine Child, who's headed to Iowa. You still monitor these guys, and if you are thinking about going to see some teams in the fall, you say, hey, Divine Child's got a pretty good defensive back, and Celine's got a pretty highly rated tight end.
Well, here's the deal, Denny. In that Division I class, I'm going to go back to it a little bit, and I'm still on the east side.
Yeah.
I talked about Cass Tech. Another team I'm going to talk about right now is Davison, and this kid, Ben Nichols. In my opinion, he's the best lineman I saw. 6'5", 320, going to Notre Dame, dominating blocks, great size, great feet for as big as he is. He's the kind of kid that plays with the attitude that I was talking about, that bully ball type attitude where he's going to knock you off the ball, but then he's going to lay on you and tell you about it, I think. And I think he takes great pride in that kind of stuff. He plays with that attitude. And you can see, and Davidson has always been one of those teams that is really a tough team, hard-nosed team, up in the thumb, great wrestling program, great football tradition. They won it, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago, state championship. And you can see why. This kid's got an attitude, and he plays with an attitude. He wants to dominate, he wants to put you through the ground is what he looks like. And I think this is going to put Davidson in a position that they're going to be competing for the state championship in Division I from the east side too, as well. Then the other player you mentioned, this Celine kid, this Lincoln Keys, 6'6", 240. Now, I'll tell you, I didn't see much film of him with his hand in the ground blocking. So I didn't see much of that. What I saw Celine do with him and utilize him with was kind of that hybrid tight end, wide receiver type situation. Spread them out, split them out, and then create that nightmare matchup for a cornerback that's just undersized and can't handle. And that's what this kid Keys does to you. He's got great ball skills, and for as big as he is, he's got speed. He was running away from some kids. And really tough to bring down. He's going to be a nightmare matchup or matchup nightmare. Good speed, good size. He blocks well in space. I'm not sure how well he blocks at the point of attack. I'm not sure there yet. But, he had a couple catches against Ann Arbor Pioneer that he was reaching behind him and coming down with the ball. And, he's going to put Celine in a position where they're going to compete with on the east side, whether they're Division I or II.
Well, let's go west side. You might say, wow, you're going through these top 10 players in the state of Michigan. It's got a heavy Notre Dame flavor where you look at Patrick, who's ranked number 4 in the state. He's committed to Notre Dame. Nichols, who you already talked about, he's committed to Notre Dame. And then Garvin also committed to Notre Dame. 3 offensive linemen. But the one thing, Allegan, that's a suburb of Kalamazoo. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And Davison and then Portage. I mean, these are South Bend.
Allegan is actually in outside. Allegan is where Grand Valley State is, I believe.
Okay.
It's outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
Outside of Grand Rapids. But
Jerry, I was going to say that, the Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo, to somebody who grew up in Southeast Michigan, that's all the same to me. They're all the same. But, that's I know you guys were a little more specific.
You know what, Denny, you might be right. Is he Allegan or Allendale?
Allegan. That's what he's.
Yeah, that's you're right. Outside of Kalamazoo, you're right. My bad.
All right. Well, I just look at all those West Side, like everything's Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. But the part it is true is that compared to South Bend and Ann Arbor, they're as close to South Bend as they are.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though they're in the state of Michigan.
Absolutely. Huge contingency in Southwest Michigan for Notre Dame. So,
although, what is it for Grand? I get the West Side. They like the Bears. Chicago's down there. Yeah, but Michigan's what is it? I've always heard that Grand Rapids though is a Michigan city.
Oh, yeah, I think it is. I see a lot more Michigan stuff than Michigan State or Notre Dame.
Okay,
maybe they're just hiding. I don't know.
All right. So we go through some of these. There's Allegan, and then there's a running back out of Hazlitt. Who knows? Kentwood, East Kentwood. Jerry, where are you coaching this year?
That's one of our young men, Cade Kaufman, great young man. I'll tell you, on the west side of the state, Denny, I think the representative on the west side will come out of the OK Red. It'll be probably either a Rockford, Granville, Hudsonville, or East Kentwood. And I think all four of those teams are going to be able to compete. Granville's got this running back, Jaden Terry, 5'9", 185. I've never seen this before, Denny. A T formation team shows passing highlights first with this young man. Okay, they're showing there's passing highlights. And the other thing that really surprised me was they line him up at left halfback. And so if you know anything about the T, if you're throwing, you want to kind of throw to the right because you're rolling to the right. Well, Kentwood uses him on the left when he runs to the right, but when he's in the pass routes, he's on the left, so it's harder to throw to him. And yet this guy gets wide open. He's wide open on passes. He's got good hand skills. I'm wondering if they're trying to sell him as a slot receiver in college. But good running back, hard to bring down, very elusive, tough kid. He's been there for a few years now, I think, at Granville. And so, he's the kind of kid that's going to put Granville. And that T formation, Denny, it's hard to keep your notice off of T formation teams. They sneak up on you and they deceive you pretty well. And they're usually in the state playoffs in a number of different divisions. So Granville is going to be a good one. Rockford's always solid. Hudsonville defending OK Red champs in Ford Field last year against Kaz, and then East Kentwood. And Cade Kaufman, let me talk a little bit about him. I really, first of all, he's well coached. Now, how does that talk about Cade? Well, Cade is coachable. Cade can be coached. He can be hard coached. And so, but he's got a lot of good mechanics. He can throw off a lot of different positions. I've seen him throw sidearm balls, throwing off his back foot. And it's something that he practices. I mean, he goes at this and practices and does these kinds of things. He had really nice stats last year, but we dropped a number of passes that could have changed a few games, and his stats would have been phenomenal last year had they not dropped as many as we dropped. We dropped a few, and but I'm looking for Cade to come out this year. He's a leader, cerebral player, very smart, takes coaching, and he's a coach on the field. I mean, you're seeing this kid direct things on the field, and right now he's leading route running and that kind of thing right now for East Kentwood. It's all player run. So Cade's a huge leader of it. So, I think a kid like Cade Kaufman is going to put Kentwood in a position where we're going to be competing to go to Ford Field this year.
Well, I know you're all set at left tackle. That's the kid I met at the spring game, right? That big left tackle that you
tight end, Owen Vanderveen.
Wow, tight end. He's as big as a left tackle. You put him on
6'5", 6'6". Here's a young man that I think he got a little banged up last year. He had a little issue last year and didn't get to play for us. We had a couple kids like that, but if he stays healthy, Owen is another one of those tight ends that can really put problems for defenses as far as matchups concerned. So those are my Division Ones on the east and west side. You got recapping. You got Cass Tech. I think Davidson's going to be competing. I think Celine's going to compete. And who else did I have down here? Davidson, Celine, Cass Tech,
Kentwood.
Well, on the west side, Kentwood, Rockford, Granville, and Hudsonville. I think it's going to come out of there.
What a nightmare having to defend the T formation and then a variations off the T. That sounds like that would not be a fun week of practice.
No, it's not, and that's why T teams are tough to defend and they're tough to beat. And I want to give a shout out. I wanted to say this earlier. A good friend of mine, I believe, is retiring. John Shaletto, I believe I'm saying his name right. John was a legendary coach at Orchard Hills, or not Orchard Hills.
Orchard Lake?
Oh, no, Orchard OVT over in Muskegon. And then he went to East Kentwood. He took a team to Ford Field at East Kentwood. Took a team at to Ford Field from Muskegon, and then he's won several state championships at Zeeland West. I had an opportunity to coach with him a little bit in the summer of 2015, and then I made the decision to go to Benton Harbor. But I knew right then they were going to win a state championship, and just wanted to shout out to John. What a great career you had, and he's kind of the T guru.
I love it. Let's go to Michigan football, Jerry, and that gets us to, we liked what was going on at the spring game, but now you think about this off season and the late spring phase and the summer phase. These guys will be working out. Some of these guys will be working out together, and I mentioned it earlier how there was a little bit of a debate about underrated players heading into the season. And I'm going to go first. I picked Samaj Morgan, and he seems to have a lot of people that are on his side, like myself, but he has plenty of detractors as well. And I think what we all saw is that he had an excellent freshman season. He scored 4 touchdowns, caught 2 passes. He ran 2 in. Of course, he had that 87-yard run in the Big Ten title game. But even on that run, some people were down on him like he got caught. Well, the kid that caught him runs a sub 4.4. And I like to remind people that, Barry Sanders used to get caught all the time from behind. And most people that are tuning in right now would say Barry Sanders is the greatest running back of all time. So I don't knock a kid. The amount of people that knock Morgan for getting caught from behind seems like that's sure, you'd like to take it to the house, but guys, it happens. You can still be a great player and get caught from behind at times. I think last year sucked the life out of Michigan as a whole, the team, certainly the offense, and definitely the pass catchers. I know Colston Loveland still got his numbers, but the wide receivers, it was tough when you're only throwing for 88 yards a game or something. It's kind of tough to get in a groove. It's tough to get any love, and then it's tough to have a breakout. That's part of it. So
here's the other thing, though, Denny. I don't think we utilized Samaj Morgan last year. I don't think we utilized the offense of personnel to our game plan. We did not do a lot of things. We didn't create ways to get our playmakers the ball and get them in space and have options and reads off of it. And that's I think one of the biggest reasons Samaj Morgan didn't have the kind of year that he had last year, and the entire offense for that matter. Campbell was a good guy. I enjoyed him. He was a good guy, but I don't know if we were creative enough on offense last year. I think I'm probably being understating that.
I would agree with you. I didn't think they used Donovan Edwards all the ways that he could have been used.
I thought Orgy could have been used a lot differently. So,
yeah, we're sitting here thinking about the same thing. Well, so for me, Morgan, and the thing that I liked about him when I watched him in the championship season is that he catch the ball, but then the run after the catch, it wasn't like they were throwing the ball down the field to him. A lot of there were just screens, and he would just sift his way through. Next thing you know, here was a 10-yard touchdown, and you look back at it, and it was like, yeah, there were some blocks and things, but he made great runs to be able to get in there. And it was pointed out to me that he put up better numbers than Desmond Howard did as a freshman. Now, it didn't happen. Desmond took a huge jump as a sophomore, but I think that is, to me, a very good candidate. He's not the other thing is that McCulley is 6'5", and Browder, the freshman, it allows Morgan, and it does give you a chance to use, if you're an offensive coordinator, say, how is Samaj Morgan best used? Well, some end arounds, some screens. That's how you want to get him the ball.
Yep, jet sweeps, those types of things. You got to get him in space. I don't know if we were very creative last year to do that with our personnel.
Yeah, put him in the backfield. Maybe hand the ball off to him once in a while. So we'll see. So that's my pick for an underrated player from Michigan heading into the summer phase. Jerry, who would you pick?
Well, then you pick Shamaj, and I understand what you're saying. I was kind of looking at it from a different aspect. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, who am I going in here and is going to stand out? It's going to pop off the screen.
Yeah,
somebody new. I'm not looking for I knew McCulley could do some things, and he got one catch, and it was a pretty impressive catch when you really look at it. And some of the other some of the other players that were Benny makes that play on the first play of the game. So there's a lot to be positive about. But the guys that I'm looking at as far as new type of players, most improved kind of thing, or somebody who I wasn't thinking about, and that would be Pau and Cudsdale. Those two I thought play. And if you want to throw one more in there, Hoffman, Nichols. I knew about him. I was liking him a while ago. Metcalf, here's a transfer kid. Yeah, we're impressed with him. We should be impressed with him if he's coming in from where he's coming in. Cole Sullivan, I saw him last year at the spring game. He continues to get better, and he's a good player. But the guys who really, I thought, stuck out in my mind, who produced and did some things in that spring game that says we need to get this kid on the field a little bit more, that would be Pau, and that would be Cudsdale.
Well, I'm fascinated by Cudsdale because he did look good for the Mays team, and then the next day they brought two guys in out of the transfer portal. So where does that leave him? They just get great depth. Maybe he's able to, find his way in there, whatever. And I feel the same way with Hoffman. Hoffman, he had, if we just base on that practice, the spring game that we saw from Bryce Underwood can really lay that ball. He's got a great the arm talent was obvious. And the ones that he was connecting on were these 10, 20-yard throws, 10 yards down the field, but air yards, 20 yards, you got to put it over there from the hash. And some of those to Hoffman and in the seam, but where's Hoffman going to fit in when you've got Bredesen and Klein and Prieskorn and Hansen? How is he going to be able to fit in there? But it can happen.
I liked Hoffman's blocking. I was very impressed with his blocking, and he caught some nice passes. So,
if you are looking for fine examples of underrated players, Keegan puts on Jimmy Rolder. Jimmy Rolder is not going to start. That's going to be Jay Sean Barham, and that's going to be Houseman. But Rolder's the next guy, and he's going to play a lot. And if you just look back over the last 3 years that he's been here, I just remember myself going back and watching the tape in some of the bigger games, like Ohio State when Rolder is a freshman or even a sophomore. Like, who's that? In the first quarter, it wasn't like the game was over or anything. You look and you're like, hey, that's Jimmy Rolder.
Yep.
They've liked him all along. He's just been banged up. And
he's also got competition. I mean, think about the inside linebacker room. That's a very talented inside linebacker room between Barrett, Houseman, Barnum. There have been plenty of good inside linebackers in that room. Hard to get on the field, and Rolder's been competing right with them. So I'm with you, Denny. I understand where you can come up and say Rolder is one of your more impressive kids or more surprised kids coming out of camp. I'm not too surprised by him. I've seen him in the past, and I know we have a solid backup crew at that linebacker spot. And Rolder plays probably 90% of the teams in the country. He starts on probably 90% of the teams in the country.
And Sharon Moore said he considers him a third starter.
So, exactly. I don't. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly right.
He'll be in there. Answer this question, Jerry. I've got my own thoughts, but Sam wants to know about Peyton O'Leary and why he hasn't caught on yet. Thought he was pretty good. And he's been here like 5 years. What do you think?
Well, I think it's one of those things where, I don't know if he's getting open enough. You know, when you see a receiver and they're not producing, you've had opportunities, spring games, practices, and that kind of thing, and we've seen him in games. And I don't know if he's getting open enough. And I think that's one of the things that's probably holding him back is foot speed. I mean, he has good skills. He did drop a pass in the spring game this year. And those are the kinds of things you can't do that. When you're a marginal player and the ball's called for you, you got to make the play. Rodder is a freshman. They're going to let him have 1 or 2 drops. Not many. They're going to let him have 1 or 2 drops. O'Leary is a fifth-year young man. He's struggled to get on the field. He's had competition in front of him, But he's had Roman. He's had Brown. He's had competition in front of him. That's tough to get on. Last year, the offense kind of tightened down. But in your 5th year and you're in the spring game, you got to come up with some plays.
Yeah.
You make them want to keep you on the field.
You nailed it. Michigan had a championship team 2 years ago. And so you're not playing in front of Kojo and Roman Wilson. I mean, you just went through it. It just wasn't going to happen. And the thing about O'Leary is, and, he's, I don't think he's, I don't know how much he's going to play this year, but he made a catch against Ohio State that I've seen it about 5 times. It's still one of the most amazing catches in, Michigan history. It wasn't even, what was it, Jerry? The quarterback was running for his life to the right, plants. This is Davis Warren, and he kind of just throws it up for grabs. And O'Leary, does he slide? And then he's kind of leaning back, and the ball
stays in bounds at the same time. So he's got the skill to do it. Something's not there. He's not doing it all the time. Something's not there that's not getting quarterbacks to look at him more. Let's put it that way.
Ripstar, I've got a question for him. There's this fascinating thing that's going around the internet where would you take one gorilla or would you take 100 men? Ripstar, 100 hot wings with 100 glasses of Coca-Cola and 100 shot glasses of blue cheese and just one Ripstar. Who wins? The blue cheese, the hot wings, or the soda pop? I don't know.
I'm betting on the wings.
I don't know. The thing about you can't drink 100 Coca-Cola. So but 100 wings. Can you eat 100 wings?
If they're sweaty, Denny, it's going to be tough.
Woo!
It's gonna be tough.
You got to have a plan. I mean, you could
everybody's got a plan until they enter.
Or what Tyson says, until they get kicked in the face, punched in the face.
Until they enter.
That's it. So go after that. It'd be fun. It'd be fun to try to take down 100 hot wings to see what would happen there. All right, that's good stuff on the
for a few days there, Denny.
What's that?
I said, don't get back on the scale for a few days.
No, the scale's amazing. I tell you, it goes. I can do really good. It goes down slowly, so you know. But man, you have 1 or 2 days of just going crazy. That scale hits the other side. So
one midnight snack and I'm back up. One midnight snack, one eating after 11, and I'm back up.
Ripstar's dropped a bag of chicken wings for us. There it is. Chicken wings from Ripstar. It's great. Ripstar, why don't you give us your underrated player? Give us an underrated player, how quickly you could come up with it. You know, I was thinking through this about the Michigan tight ends. And while you were talking, Jerry, and Jalen Hoffman had 148 yards in the spring game. And it was just one of the 15 practices, even though it was a spring game. But Underwood definitely can throw the pass from the hash, and he can pepper underneath. And a lot of that is going to be the tight end. And it was Hoffman who was the recipient of a lot of those. So now you've got Klein and you've got Hogan Hansen. And as much as people are talking about, we need another wide receiver in the transfer portal, these guys aren't quite Colston Loveland. We get that. He was the top 10 pick in the NFL draft. But Underwood likes to throw to the tight end. A lot of young quarterbacks do. That's their security blanket. We saw that he can make that throw. He's very good at making that throw. So if anybody wanted to make a case for Prieskorn, Hogan Hansen, although I think he's arrived, I don't even know how underrated he is. Klein was one of the guys that people talked about was an underrated guy last year, but that whole tight end position, they might be, I don't know who the number one, probably McCulley, if I had to guess, would be the number one option for Underwood. That's who he's, but if you started to say it could be Hansen, could be Klein, for all the things that I just mentioned, I think that could be something.
Denny, I don't think this gets mentioned enough. Klein, isn't he one of the fastest, if not the fastest kid on the team?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we answered a little bit of that question right there. I love the fact that Underwood likes going to tight ends, and I think Klein is going to be a huge nightmare for defenses in that hybrid situation. And that's where Hoffman or somebody like Hoffman who comes on the scene that can block at tight end, now all of a sudden you got that personality, you got the defenses guessing on what their personnel should be. Now you got what looks like 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends on the field, and now you can split them out and still be in a 10 formation or 11 personnel formation. That's tough for the defense. You know, I know we used to run a 32 offense, a stack high, pound, double tight, 3 in the backfield, the whole shot. And then we'd split out into a 10 shotgun formation. And it was St. Joe, and I'm going to, my good friend Elliot Uselak, he saw us do it, and boom, timeout came. All of a sudden, you got the defense with the wrong personnel on the field, and that's what I think our tight ends, what our tight ends give us. And it's happened for a while now.
We talk a lot about McCulley, but Ripstar might be correct. You're saying underrated. Michigan, I think we're expecting McCulley to be a star, the number one option in the pass game.
And to be honest with you, Denny, when I was watching him in pregame, he's got an attitude. He's got that attitude where I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to beat you up because you're too small. You can't cover me. And he's got that kind of attitude. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. I really am. Even the one catch he had, he went up in traffic. He went up in traffic, got it, and then he almost broke the tackle. He almost broke through it. So I'm not saying McCulley is my sleeper because I think we all know about him. I think a lot of people know about him.
Yeah, I don't know if this sounds crazy to say or not. I don't know if it would have been true, but Browder 6'5", McCulley 6'5". If you put McCulley on that fade pass that Bryce Underwood threw, that ended up being dropped, maybe McCulley, we saw him could get that 50-50 ball. He caught that one. Maybe that's a touchdown. The other one, that was the almost 40-yard pass towards the end of the third quarter. That was a high-level pass from Bryce Underwood. That ball wasn't perfect, but you go up, you expect to make that catch. You had
maybe one with Browder?
Catch.
The one with Browder? Is that what you're talking about?
Both Browder had, from I put him down. They weren't all perfect balls. Those two that I'm talking about, the fade in the end zone and the 40-yarder down there, but those were catchable. And I would put him down as drops. And I think McCulley, if we're saying, hey, I'm expecting him, I can't say that I think he would have pulled him in. I don't know based on what, that he caught a 50-50 ball. But I'm saying that since we think he's going to be the number one guy and we know Underwood's going to be the one throwing it, well, we're expecting him to make that catch, both of those catches.
Yeah, and I got to believe Browder's going to make that catch in the future. He's seen it now. He's been there. He's seen it. He knows what it's like. I believe, or he's not going to play much.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Now, Mason Curtis he's a big rangy safety. We saw him last year. You got Jacob Oden, Zeke Berry. Maybe he'll be a corner. Maybe he'll be a safety. Brandon Hillman, Mr. Martini, talking about as an underrated player. High school quarterback. What we saw from him, did he knock out 2 players in that Indiana game, which is big hits, no penalties? There he is, Hillman. You know what I thought was interesting, Jerry, is that everyone I had in my own, I was there for when he talked to the media, and I was like, I want to ask him about the big hits, and are they telling him, not to bring the wood so much? Does he have to lay up? Because you just can't be that kind of old school player when you're thinking about helmet to helmet, all of these things. And Hillman said, yeah, they coach him up on how to hit, but he's not stopping the way he's hitting. He certainly knows that it counts the same to get the guy down on the ground than it does to, just coming up and pop him. But he also, what I found surprising is the coaches weren't telling him, oh no, you got to really dial that back. They're saying, yeah, you want to be smart, but they're still, that he's allowed to come up and, be this big time hitter.
There's a lot of
Michigan or not.
I'm sorry, say that again, Denny.
Smart move by Michigan, not telling him, hey, don't go for these kill shots. Dial it back a little bit. He was more like, no, they're not telling him to dial it back.
Well, I'm going to do a couple things here real quick. I'm going to dovetail on Mr. Martini. First of all, you mentioned Hillman, and we talked a little bit about Barry. Let's dovetail with Earls in there and put Earls in that mix up. Now, I think Barry's playing out of position at corner. When they put him at corner, I think he's playing out of position. Now if Earls can come in and solidify one of those positions, and now you got, again, our defense just got a lot deeper with Benny Hillman. We're not even talking about more right now. So there's my position right there. I think Barry is playing out of position, and I think Earls is the answer.
Yeah, we should remember that Rod Moore was a great player. I mean, you remember, right? He was a great player right as a freshman. He wasn't even in for spring as a freshman, and he was a great player as a freshman. Obviously, great player as a junior when he made the clinching interception in the national championship, or the Ohio State game in the national championship season. All of those. Marvin Harrison pulled up, and Moore made it, and he's expected to be back. That's going to be a huge shot in the arm from this.
And that's why, Denny, I love the Michigan defense. Deep, solid, big, physical, explosive.
And they've got some swagger being coached by Wink. Wink now. He's very comfortable. He was a little bravado off the bat. Texas got him a little bit, but he kept getting better. The players kept responding to him more, and he feels comfortable now over there.
Yes, I think so. I like I said, I've said this in the past. in my opinion, without question, the most improved coach in college football last year. And at the end of the year, he was probably the best defensive coordinator in college football.
Jerry, I'm just going to tell you this. I didn't tell anybody else this, but why not? I was looking through my clothes, the other day, and I've got a lot of these long shirts, and I was going to the gym, and I had this old raggedy hoodie, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just throw it out, give it up to Goodwill. And I said, why don't I cut this like Wink does? So I cut the sleeves off of this thing, and then I had this long sleeve shirt, and then I put it on, and I'm like, this is a Wink Martindale. This is a Wink outfit right here, and I wore it to the gym. And when I was looking at myself, I'm like, yeah, this is a total Wink. This is totally Wink inspired. That's what he does. He takes all of his shirts, get yourself a tight-fitting undershirt, and then cut the sleeves on a hoodie, and you're Wink.
That's your Wink's attire.
Jerry, what kind of, when you're the head coach, were you more of a, were you dressing up for the weather? Are you short sleeves? Let's go out there. No hat, short sleeve shirt. You're still on there. Former offensive lineman. How did you roll when it came down to it?
Until it got to the playoffs, and then we changed the attire altogether.
Oh, you can go to a little more.
Maybe that was our problem in the playoffs. Should have stayed with the other one.
How about when you played, Jerry? Did you dress up for?
Oh, Denny, I was one of those guys. Tighten up the arms, no sleeves, nothing. Playing Purdue in 20-degree weather. Anthony Carter's last game.
Was Anthony Carter? He was
anyway.
6'1", 6 feet. Well, how big was Anthony Carter?
I don't know how big he was, but he was fast, and he had
good
feet, and you couldn't cover him.
No, couldn't catch him. He was very elusive. Give him the ball, let him go. I'm there with it. All right, I love it. I love hearing about Anthony Carter all the time. Great. So I was thinking about the top 5, the preseason college football top 25, and I had looked a couple months ago after the season. I do the way too early, but then I thought, who would I pick sitting right now if I was going to put together a poll? And so I put together my top 5, and this is for everybody to take shots at me and everything else. But I put Ohio State at number 1. Yeah, they're the defending champs. They lost their quarterback, but they got Julian Sayin, who was the top 5 or a 5-star. They had another kid that was in there too. And, Sayin's been in the program for a year. And Ohio State has the best offensive player, and they have the top defensive player in downs on the defensive side, and Jeremiah Smith, who Michigan held to 35 yards in the game last year. But I would rank Ohio State at number 1. Is that too high for the Buckeyes, Jerry, as you're looking at it?
Well, since they were a 2-loss, 4th-place team in the Big Ten last year, I don't know if I would agree with you on Ohio being up that high. First of all, they're losing a ton.
Yeah.
They're losing a ton. They're losing both their edges on the defensive side, one in the middle, losing DBs, losing linebackers, losing offensive linemen. They lose a ton.
They do.
You want to talk about the defensive player in the country, best defensive player in the country last year, Downs. He's a safety. He's a safety, and safeties come up and make plays, no question about it. But you know what? If your safety is your leading tackler, there's something wrong with your front.
I don't mind. You put out a poll, you got to take the criticism. I put Texas as number 2, and I'm going to tell you that I am putting Texas up there most for 2 reasons. Neither of them are great reasons to put them up there, and it's what a lot of people, college football fans, say, hey, you're kind of part of the problem here. And one of them is that Arch Manning, he played 3 games last year, but because he's Manning and he's just got a lot of buzz around him, and that it's just, and look, Eli, these guys, Hall of Fame, Peyton Manning, all that, a lot of the hype of Arch Manning is why I put him at number 2. And I'm also putting him at number 2 for just hype for week 1. Texas travels to Ohio State on August the 30th to open up the college football season. And if the preseason poll doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot, let's wait until September or October before it means anything. Well, why not go with the super hype of Arch Manning? And why not get a number 1 versus number 2 in week 1? I am putting it there for TV, for hype, for the number 1, number 2. Jerry, does that make me a bad guy?
I'm just first of all, Denny, it's way too early to start picking, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's early.
And I just I see that poll and I'm thinking, I don't see any defense up there. I don't see a lot of defense up there. And I think our defense is going to be one of the best teams in the country. And so, Arch Manning, I think he's going to be a great quarterback. But you got to ask yourself, how come he never started over Ewers, who got picked in the 7th round?
Woo, Jerry, that's a sizzler. That's a real sizzling comment.
Obviously he's a great talent. Obviously everybody's happy with him. But if he's that good, he's on the 2-yard line against Ohio State. Now is what's his name? The coach of Texas,
Sark.
You got the ball on the 2-yard line against Ohio, 1st and 10, and you don't have your best running quarterback in there. I don't understand that. So what's wrong? Is it the quarterback or is it the coach? I don't know. Something's wrong. But either way, I got to question Texas.
Yeah, the way that Arch Manning, that they've spoon-fed him and that they've just waited and now they're dropping him in there. It's incredible. But the week 1 versus 2, I can't get away from. The Manning name, the defending champs. I know they technically won it, but so there it is. I've got it for a lot of hype. And that's why I ended up doing Dante Moore.
Somebody asked me if I would take Drew Allard or Arch Manning. I'm taking Manning because we've seen what Allard could do. Again, bad situation. They're playing Notre Dame. They got their ball. They got the ball on their side of the field, and they're throwing the ball like that. Tough situation. Was it Allard or was it the coach? That's what you got to look at with Penn State. And so Texas going into Ohio, that's going to be a tough place to play.
I tell you, Allard is not his freshman year because it was Clifford that was playing, but his sophomore season when I'm watching him, I was thinking, this guy is not a very good quarterback.
He doesn't scare me. He doesn't scare me, and he will make mistakes.
He got a lot better last year. Dante Moore.
He made mistakes at crucial times, like he's done in the past.
Dante Moore was a 5-star quarterback, and he went right into UCLA. I don't know if they gave him a promise that they would play him or not, but he wasn't all that impressive either. True freshman playing at UCLA. He originally, is this right? He originally went to Oregon, committed, took their money, and then went down, took UCLA's money, and then bolted back to Oregon. I don't know. He's made more money than anybody in the transfer portal. By the way, he's bouncing around, but he's going to be the quarterback for the Ducks. He's in a pretty good spot here. The local product. We all wanted him to go to Michigan, but now here he is for Oregon in Dan Lanning. So all of these quarterbacks, 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. Actually, all 5 of these teams had 5 stars, and none of them as true freshmen. The Sayan didn't get on the field. Manning didn't get on the field. Moore was not impressive. Allard wasn't even impressive as a sophomore. And Klubnik, he got on in the bowl game as a true freshman. He wasn't very impressive, and he wasn't very impressive as a sophomore either. But he's supposedly the number 1 quarterback now, Jerry, heading into the season.
Again, Denny, there's such an emphasis on the quarterback. Everybody wants to put the emphasis on the quarterback. And I keep going back to what Dan Patrick said that I commented on. The last best teams have been the ones with the upfront kid talent, the defensive and offensive lines, Michigan and Georgia.
Okay, that's not a bad way to go about it. To give me the best offense and defensive lines. Who's Michigan's best offensive lineman, Jerry? Go.
Right now, I would say, I would probably say El Hadi.
And I'd probably say Sprague, but I didn't play offensive line, and I don't know.
I'd say El Hadi because I haven't seen Sprague enough. I saw him dominate against Alabama. There's no question about that, Denny. He was a very good player against Alabama. I've seen El Hadi. I've seen him grow and get better and better, and he's been a real he at the end of the year, I thought he was kind of a dominant player. So I'm staying with El Hadi. But yeah, you're right. Sprague could get in that conversation real quick.
Yeah, the reason I picked Sprague is when I saw him as a freshman, and then he's
a house. He was
big, and then when I saw him against Alabama, the first thing I thought was, well, he's really grown in that frame. He had the 6'7" frame or whatever else, and he looked more like a basketball player. And then I saw him against Alabama, and he looked more like Panay Sewell. And I was like, oh, he's filled out.
Hey, I remember playing with a kid by the name of Jumbo Elliott. Okay. Jumbo, I think he started his sophomore year on Bo's 6-6 team, and I think he was 6'7" or 6'6", 240. I want to say something like that. He was a beanpole. And the next year he comes out, and 2 years later he's one of the top draft picks, 310, just an absolute stud. So, hey, listen, I could be completely wrong on this. And Sprague kind of reminds me of that kind of Jumbo Elliott type of player when I saw him last year against Alabama. He's a big body, and he's going to be a dominant player. And I would be happy to be corrected on that. If Sprague comes through and plays better than El Hadi, we're going to be pretty good up front.
One of the final three questions I was going to ask you, that's one. The second one is courtesy of Rip, who says, Jerry, you can have any of these players as the top quarterback in college football this season. Who are you picking? Klubnik, Nussmeier, Beck, who's now with Miami, Lagway, he's Florida's quarterback, Arch, Aller, the Arizona State quarterback, Levitt, or Sellers, who is at South Carolina. If I could just jump in, the two most exciting players, and I'm just going to pick them. I like the Florida quarterback and the South Carolina quarterback the best. That doesn't mean that they're on the best teams, but they're the most entertaining to watch. But so I'm going to go DJ Lagway, and I am going, is it I forget his first name, but Sellers from South Carolina. Those are going to be my picks.
I'd be real concerned about Lagway at Florida. I think Florida's got some things going on right now. And I think if I'm in the SEC, I'm concerned with Florida and Lagway.
All right. That's who you're picking. I like it. And the final question will be, Jerry, when people ask you if Michigan is going to make the college football playoff, it's early May. What are you saying to them?
I'm 100% in, Denny. I love our defense. I think our defense is going to be outstanding, and I think our offense is going to be good enough to put us not only in the playoffs, but maybe jockey for position.
Wow.
That's how good our defense, I think, is going to. I think our defense is very underrated. And I think our people are going to find out in this country that last year's first 3 or 4 games was a fluke. First 4 or 5 games was a fluke. And now we're settled in on our defense.
That's a great way to wrap it up. Great job, Jerry. Fun to have you on here. We look forward to speaking with you the rest of the spring and certainly the summer, entertaining us before we get to the college football season. Thanks so much for your time today.
Go Blue, and hail to the victors, Denny.
There he